said. Oh, I was my baby, you're from Calabos. The only boss. With oneness, baby, I will be everywhere I day and everywhere they go. Tap Send got me covered. Therefore, if you need to send money or transfer money from Europe, from Canada, from USA, from UK, any part in Europe, you can send it through Tap Send. And guess what? Oceania, they will receive it right here in Ghana and many countries across Africa. So what are you waiting for? Download Tap Send now on Google Play Store or App Store. When you download, it's so easy to use. Tell your families, tell your loved ones to download Tap Send. Okay? But also, when I receive my money, the other time I would be chilling, like my view, hey, you crazy.
Download Tap Send now on Google Play and App Store. Tap Send. It's secure, convenient, easy, and fast.
Buy an interest-free home and pay within 36 months. Yes, Daimler Homes' new gold standard development, Hilton Court, has just commenced, and you can own a unit now and pay within 36 months without any interest. Starting at 95,000, you can own an elegant apartment. And guess what? Discounts are available from now till end of May. To learn more, visit our website at daimlerhomesgh.com or call us on 0200-584-558. Daimler Homes, the elegance of living.
Hello, this is Lawyer Wisdom of Wismart Solicitors. Join me this and every Friday on OT TV from 8 to 9 p.m. for all your UK immigration matters. I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to today's show of OT Media Health Talk. As usual, my name is Dr. Akos and my co-host is Abena, and together we're known as the Oasis, and we will be hosting the show for today. So Abena, what do we have today? What's going on?
Well, today we are going to be talking about sickle cell. So in layman's terms, from Kakrana Memetiasi of sickle cell, I believe it is one of, if not the most common inherited sort of, if I'm saying, blood disease, and it's a disorder marked by defective hemoglobin. And of course, these are big words we are using here, and too ambiguous. So we all don't understand it, and that's the reason why we have with us today Ruth, who is a medical physicist, to speak to us. So we will Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but just before she comes on, obviously, we're going to acknowledge everybody who's here. So thank you all for joining. Obviously, we like to start sharp and get straight into it because we've only got 1 hour, really. So we just want to get straight into it. But yeah, we just want to acknowledge everybody who's here. Thank you all for joining once again. Our faithful watchers, if you're here with us for the first time, we're really happy to have you. And as you can see, today we're repping the color green because, we just wanted to shout out to our sponsors, Tap Send, and thank you, OT Media, as well, for hosting this. So yeah, without further ado, should we invite Ruth to come in? Because Ruth is usually a shy girl, so let me just give her a bit of fans before she comes, so that maybe we'll make her a bit more comfortable. So I met Ruth a long time ago in Aberdeen when we were both students, and when I was studying my medicine. And I remember I actually met her through a friend, so I didn't actually know that she had sickle cell. And I really, really want to thank Ruth for, coming onto the show today, for coming to share quite a personal journey with us. And I just want to give a disclaimer as well. As a doctor, I always say to people who have long-term conditions like sickle cell, right? When they know more than us physicians when it comes to the disease. Because if you think about it, I've had about roughly 5 years of practicing as a qualified physician. Before that, I've had 5 years of studying in medicine. So I can say maybe roughly I've got 10 years of medical experience, right? But for today's purposes, we'll say Ruth is 20. even if Ruth is 20, she's lived with sickle cell for the past 20 years, which means even though I might have medical experience for 10 years, roughly, she has 20 years experience of sickle cell, which means that, they usually, people with chronic diseases usually have to keep us right when it comes to treating them. And I thought it would just be good to have it from like a patient's perspective, especially, one who's lived with it for their whole life. So yeah, without further ado, I just want to, really thank you, Ruth, for coming on to share such a personal information with us. So we really appreciate you. And yeah, and just put hands together for you. And yeah, come on and introduce yourself. Madam Ruth. She's feeling shy, I'm sure.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm Ruth Beulah, and I'm a medical physicist. I'm currently in Ghana. And yeah, Christian has said it also. I've survived sickle cell for a while. I didn't hesitate to her proposal, but hopefully she would get the information she wants to put across this evening. Thank you.
Yes, very well. So because of the way today's program is, I'm gonna I don't know, Ruth, do you want to give a quick sort of review on what sickle cell is, or would you want me to sort of ask and then you answer? Like, how do you want to
Yeah, let's do it question and answer. Yeah, it will be
it will be easier. Okay.
Yeah.
So usually I would ask people things like when did you find out you had sickle cell? But in your case,
I literally know the story actually, so I can share if you don't mind.
Okay.
So, my parents made me know at a very tender age. I remember very well. So they said I kept falling sick growing up, and they didn't understand. So they went to do a lab, and then there was this particular doctor that requested for a genotype. So they did this, and then they realized I was SS. So now they had to take preventive measures, everything from scratch, new way of dealing with it, special treatment sometimes, and all those things. But right from, as a class one, I knew that was it. So if I happen to enter a hospital and anything is wrong with me, my mommy says, the moment you see a nurse, just tell her, yes, sickle cell, they give priority to such patients. So even if I'm not feeling sick, I just have to go, just for them to know I am fine. That is how it has been for me. But I always say I'm the very unique type, because growing up, I never really had the crisis a lot of people have. But the little duration I get, it takes a while for me to come out of it. So that is why my parents always made sure, even when I am not sick, just visit the doctor, just go, let them check, do the labs. There are times I'll do the lab and I'm going to the hospital with the labs. We go together. And there are times I'll go, they'll request for more, they'll come and do it. So it has been like that for me, step by step. So I actually knew mine from a very tender age. Yeah, they made me know this is your condition. This is how you should behave. Hello, are you there?
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I was trying to talk and I realized I was muted. So did your parents know that they were AS prior?
Not really, but after the test, they figured out they were AS. So I think, I don't know, but I always say probably back in the days, testing for genotype was not a big deal like it is right now. So yeah.
Yeah, so okay, that's really interesting. I think this is one of the things that we usually say a lot. Obviously, like you said, right now we say to people get tested for genotype because these are some of the reasons, So in your case, if you do you think going forward, I was gonna say, would you test for, would you, if you do find a partner, or I don't know if you've got a partner at the moment, but would
that's the first question I asked on the date. I can't afford to waste my time because I know my only option is an AA. So I can't afford to have all the fun and then come back to say, oh yeah, I forgot. What's your genotype again? Nah, I'm not doing it. So, not on the first dates. It's one of the key questions I ask.
What if you find somebody that you really, really like and you think, oh, do you know what? Do you think it is something that you can put to the corner and say, you know what, I'm sickle cell and I'm surviving, so it doesn't matter if my kid has? Do you think it's something that you would consider?
Hey, it matters. I mean, I didn't go through a lot of pain, but I cannot afford to see my kids go through it. I am not sacrificing their future like that. It's one thing I'm not greedy about, and I'm not so personal about. I'll not risk it.
Right. And growing up, or what are the kind of symptoms that you get when you have sickle cell? So what are the common, or what are symptoms you can sort of use to identify?
I mean, personally to me, the usual one I was getting is, I don't know whether it's my ribs, but in Chi we say me fear me. I don't know how best Akosia can explain that in the medical term, but in Chi we say me fear me. It was the one problem I think I had from JHS right up to, I mean, it was JHS period. And then I didn't have any other pains. Also, I got to SHS, and then what was keeping me at the hospital was menstrual cramps. So the moment I get it, it reduces my blood, and then I had to get admitted during that period of my menstruation. So it was one thing for me. And then it comes with all these lower limbs, my feet, my legs. I mean, from my waist down, it will just pain me throughout the period of my menstruation. But the moment it goes, I am up and kicking and running like nothing happened to me. So that was the only pains I was having. And then on and off, the moment I stress a little bit, there are all these shoulder joint pains. But aside that, I am really okay, like very fine. It's just not common that you see me this week in the hospital, you see me next week now. But the only thing is, if it happens, it takes a while before I get well. But aside that, I didn't have the usual crisis of some. And I had a friend that the moment the weather gets cold, she has to wear sweaters throughout. So my mom always asks me how I survived in the UK. And I'm like, even in Ghana, I was in the car, I'm fine. So the weather was not a problem for me like other sickle cell patients. But I know other people that the moment it gets cold, they have to wear sweater throughout their life. They have to boil water. But me, if I bath hot water, I feel hot. So it's a no-go area in my house. But ideally, that should be it. I have to bath the hot water so that I do not have any other crisis or anything. But it's the opposite for me. So my parents worry me about hot water unless it's extremely cold. So I think I'm a blessed child with sickle cell. Yeah.
Okay. And typically, how long did your crisis last, if and when you went into one?
I mean, I think the longest I had was probably a week and a half. So probably like 8, 10, 12 days. And that was also on admission. And that was in my final year in KNUST. I felt like the crisis just felt like, oh, you've not visited Tech Hospital, you have to pass through. That is what I felt. Because, I mean, the moment I got to Tech Hospital, I figured out what was the problem. I mean, my daddy made me so conscious of myself that this little pain, I know it is this. And growing up I was the only one in the house who could take chloroquine. I don't know, people had reactions, itchy and all that. I take chloroquine 221 and I am fine. You see me jumping outside again. And I grew up with boys, so I didn't know how to lady stuff. You see me jumping with them on the page, playing the football. I'm all over the place. And so my parents were a bit worried too, because this girl, you're not strong. Won't you do what is supposed to be done for you? But I guess they couldn't tie me down. So that was it. So final year KUST, after lectures, I was like, oh, well, let me just pass through. I went and they were like, oh, we have to admit you long term. I came there and was like, you know what? You are fine and all that. But the problem is, you people, when we discharge you, you come back again. So you will just stay here and let me observe you for a while. And I'm like, this man, I just wasting my time. I mean, final year, I have projects, I have things. But I mean, patients should always listen to their doctor. So they just come around and they're like, yeah, fine, you want to go? I'm like, I want to go. Why people say, when I go, I'll come back. So don't worry, keep me here. They kept me there 5 days, 6 days. I'm like, you know what? On a more serious note, let's talk this down. I'm really fine. My labs are normal, no pains, nothing. Can I go home? But I think later on in the period, I had a spike of fever in the evening. Okay. And they were like, Abi, I said it. And I'm like, no, it's nothing. It's just the AC. If you like turn it on, I'll turn it off, I'll be fine. but it was something that was probably picking up in my system. So they did a new urine lab. They said, oh, infection. I said, I pick it up in your hospital. Because I've been here since Monday. You didn't detect infection. So if there's infection, it means I picked it up from the hospital. And then they treated, and then some antibiotics, kept me there for extra 3 days, and then I was good to go. So, I mean, my go-to is stay away from mosquitoes, watch the urinal when you're using it. I mean, I'm just conscious of my surroundings like that. So, yeah.
It's interesting you should mention chloroquine. Obviously, I'm not the specialist here. I would have thought that sickle cell patients were rather react adversely to chloroquine. So that brings me to sort of the question of are there any medications that, as a sickle cell patient, you can't take, and how are you typically treated when you go into this crisis?
Wow, that's a big one. Akusha would probably add more to it, but I would just say it from my point of view. So I don't know why I was the only one surviving to chloroquine, but I knew very well I cannot skip my folic acid. It's like it's in my packets. I have one under my pillow. I have them scattered all over, so there is no way I'll forget it because I know I'll forget. So I have them all over the place, and then I have my Zinkovitz also all over the place. And diclofenac was my go-to painkiller until I was told it has side effects on the kidneys, blah, 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 unless you drink a lot of water. So I stopped taking diclofenac. Then I jumped up to Brufen. And then they told me it is also doing something to my system. I had to stop. I told people, it's okay. I don't want any painkiller. I can survive through the night. So what I mostly do is if I feel any pain, I just sleep. I wake up and I'm fine, except a few instances where it will not help. So my mommy had to learn how to put the IV catheter or whatever they call it, the IV line. So if it gets extreme in the night, she just takes your hand, hits you, fix the line, and then she's giving you the infusion. But she'll get a prescription from the family doctor. So she goes like, oh, mommy is having this, and then they just tell her which of the IVs to buy. Mostly it was the one with the yellow writing. That's what I saw they mostly gave me. So I mean, a liter or 1.5 liters to the night, and then I'm fine. So that is it for other people. I don't survive on this tramadol. They don't do anything to me. I still feel the pain. Plus, I don't really like it. So I was given another painkiller, which if I feel any pains on and off, I take. I've forgotten the name, but I know that diclofenac is not good for us, Brufen is not good for us. So it's the folic acid for me. But now I know they are putting them on hydroxyurea in Ghana. Yeah. Unfortunately, the reason for the hydroxyurea, my system is very strong for it, so I stopped taking it. Plus, it has this thing of contraception thoughts and all that. And my parents were bothered about this, so I had to go off the hydroxyurea. But I do go for my regular checkups just to observe that not taking the hydroxyurea and taking it, what's the difference in my electrolytes, lymphocytes, and those things they've been checking on the lab.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you've pretty much summarized it. Just to like sort of touch on some of the things you mentioned from my point, like my experience. And I always say this, but in the West, we're not taught very well how to treat sickle cell because it's considered like a tropical disease almost in a way. So the West have a similar disease themselves called thalassemia. So that's what we learn a little bit more about. And that's basically like the white version of sickle cell, and that's to put it very, very simply. But it's basically, it's also a hemoglobin disease, and it's literally found in the Mediterranean and sort of the Western areas a bit more. So we learn how to treat that more than we do sickle cell. So for somebody like me who, has a background and coming from Ghana and family who come from Ghana, we kind of have to go and do our own research and things. But the good thing about Aberdeen, when I worked in Aberdeen, is we actually used to get, because there was a lot of the Nigerian population there, because of the oil. So we used to get a lot of people coming in. So I learned how to treat it a little bit. And mostly when somebody has an occlusive crisis, and that's basically when their blood vessels are blocked with the blood, and they go through hemolytic, and it's very painful. The only painkillers that can touch them is strong opioids, so like morphine. and would give you morphine through a drip. And then another very important thing is oxygen, because if you think about the role of the red blood cells, they carry oxygen to your organs, and obviously if your blood's not working in that way and is all blocked, then you need extra oxygen. If not, you're essentially going to end up with organ failure. So that's how we treat sickle cell, just painkillers and oxygen. It's pretty much, that's it. Curative, anything that can be considered to cure it would be like a blood transfusion or a bone marrow transfusion. Bone marrow transfusion is probably the best thing, because we can get into details of this, but all you need to know is that your red blood cells are made in your bone marrow. So essentially, if you get a bone marrow transplant, then you can, in a way, you're curing the whole, or you're not really curing, I suppose you're sort of diluting it, but then you get really healthy blood cells to mix with the sickle cells, and then that can actually be very long term. The only sad thing, again, in the UK, and I'm sure other European countries face this, is that Black people don't tend to donate their bone marrows very often. So I'm on the bone marrow register, just because, I feel like I would love to help a black brother or a Black sister who needs it. But Black people don't tend to go on the bone marrow register very often, which means that when Black people get things like sickle cell, or when they even get things like bone cancers like leukemia, most of them don't survive from it because we don't get a match for them, because Black people just don't donate their bone marrows. So in other words, please do put yourself on a bone marrow register, because you never know whose life you might be saving. So Ruth, have you ever had, I know you've said before, I just want to ask, but have you ever had like a blood transfusion ever at all?
I think that's the extreme I have not gone. And then the oxygen you mentioned, so I know people who take oxygen on every admission. So blood transfusion, oxygen, I've not had that yet.
Okay. No, and fingers crossed you won't have it in Jesus' name. So you're not going to have it.
Okay. By the way, because you mentioned it, I know that affects more Black people, maybe people of African descent. Are we the only people to be affected by sickle cell though? And as can white people or other people from outside of our sort of ethnicity get it?
Is that to Ruth or is that to me?
To the both of you. Ruth is a patient. I think it's more you.
I think it's more you, yeah.
I'm gonna say that I don't think it's just it's more I can say maybe something like 90%. Now I'm pulling these statistics out of nowhere, trust me. But basically, it's just saying that Black people definitely get it more, especially Africans. Yeah. But in the same way that I know that Black people can also get thalassemia, which is known to be the white people condition. So in the same way, white people can also get sickle cell. And actually in the Mediterranean areas, it's funny because it seems like where there are a lot of mosquitoes is where you get these.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So in places where there aren't mosquitoes or like malaria, you literally don't get these. Not that you don't, like, it's very difficult to get them, but I think it's literally the tropics and the Mediterranean, the warmer climates is where you actually tend to get the population of sickle cell and thalassemia. So, well, that's a thought for another day.
Which is interested, actually. So I asked my question is about you mentioned it's found. So it's because it's not similar to G6PD, but it has very similar sort of traits in the sense that it's found in places where there are mosquitoes because it's meant to be a sort of immunity to malaria. So have you ever got malaria then, Ruth?
A lot.
Interesting.
That is why the chloroquine is my best drug, because for a while, in the beginning when the artesunate and modalcrine came into the system, my body was not adjusting to it. So I had to take the chloroquine for a while until it literally got eradicated from the system. And then they put me on injections, and then later on I tried the drugs again, and I was good.
Yeah.
Malaria is quite a threat.
Yeah, I think I wanted to just clarify this as well. And that's why I thought it was important to talk about sickle cell, because I think I've mentioned on the show before that I think it was a nurse here who made a correction about the sickle cell trait and the actual sickle cell. And there are a lot of different papers on which one, but I've been doing a lot of research because the more I read, the more I found out that some people say that you are immune to it when you have sickle cell, and some papers are saying you are immune to it when you have the sickle cell trait. So it was really difficult for me to find an answer, but I think after reading several papers, I came to an understanding. And so this is my conclusion from it, that actually when you have the sickle cell trait, so the lady on the show was was right that time. So when you have the sickle cell trait, I can't remember who she is, but if you're here, sorry, I think it was actually Auntie Vic or Naomi. But yeah, if you have the sickle cell trait, you actually more protective against the malaria. But when you have the actual sickle cell, because the actual sickle cell makes you more susceptible to infections, whatever infection it is, be it cold, malaria, whatever, because you're more likely to fall sick. So again, the information out there was a bit misleading, but after doing some, because I wasn't convinced actually after she mentioned it, and I thought, you know what, let me do a bit more reading on this. So this just goes to show you the doctors don't know everything, and and we also sometimes just need to do a bit more reading and a bit more digging. But yeah, no, thank you for that. So yeah, you're quite right. So the sickle cell trait is protective against malaria, but the actual disease is actually it becomes more severe because you don't have so many protective barriers. Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. I mean, are there any last words, Ruth, that you'd like to give based on your experiences with sickle cell? Any advice, anything that you'd like to say before we open it up for questions?
I think the only thing I'll say is for parents who accept their kids and help them stand on their feet. The stigmatization against us is crazy. Like coming from Africa, I mean, I'm a sickle cell patient myself, but when I go to the clinic, I feel pity for them than for myself because I know what they're going through and all that. And then you get all these treatments from people, the comments, it can just kill your soul like that. So I think that stigmatization is my fight. That's why I joined the sickle cell team in Ghana, just to help the advocacy and all that.
That's interesting you mentioned. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit more questions. Like what maybe we're just not, what kind of stigma do you get or what kind of comments, if you don't mind sharing, because I'm not really sure.
Number one is you will not live above 20 years.
Okay.
Number two is this, I mean, I don't know why people just decide to use the word or you're sickler or you're yarifo. I mean, some of us are stronger than some people who say they are AS. No offense to them, but I mean, I've seen people. You get someone who is AS, he has all these other diabetes, hepatitis, all the diseases combined, and you think you are healthier than me. I mean, I don't see the relation. But I would never agree to the fact that you are stronger than me. And then the other bit too is this thing of, so I'll give a very personal experience I had at a job interview. So I go to the interview and then I think they did a little digging and then they realized I was sickle cell and then they went like, now you are for the then I'll be to my So I stood up, looked at the HR's face and said, you just lost a very good team member. And if you think I am a sickler, like you put it, because you saw me like this. I mean, if you saw me after that, I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know I was one and then you could have employed me. But anyway, not fine. But the fact that you are judging me because of this, I will just walk out. There's no need to continue this interview because whatever I'm going to say afterwards, you still have at the back of your mind, I'm not strong. I'm going to die in the next 2 years and all those sorts of negative thoughts. And it would never help me in this environment. There's nothing positive here. So I just walked out. I mean, I didn't think twice. I came back home and I told my daddy, even if they call me, I'll not go. Like, the mere fact that before you interview me, you are thinking I cannot do anything, like I'm basically useless to the team. I just walked out. So, and I've had other people share the same story. I had a friend in the university. She was chosen as the class rep, and then I think she fell sick a couple of the weeks. And then the class members, how do they call them? Course mates, reported them to the lecturer that she can't leave them, she's not strong. Oh, a whole lot of negative stuff. And then, I mean, she literally backed down. She had to withdraw from her master's program for a year, build herself up again, get strong. I mean, other people are really suffering out there. I've not really had much, but that interview sort of made me go like, nah, if one negative word is going to get me down, nah, that is not me. That's not Beulah. So I got up and then that is why I'm joining the advocacy team. So it's a whole lot. I mean, I had a friend getting married and then the moment the son is he's not bothered. But the problem is the moment the guy goes to the mom and comes back, he has all these thoughts of, hey, you will die and leave me, and you will not live long, who take it, all those things. And then now they had to separate because the mom doesn't like the girl that she's SS and then she's going to die. So a lot of all these are still happening. And there are some people who do not even know their genotype to start with. And then they get into such marriages and it completely breaks them like, nah, we can do better.
Yeah. It was quite interesting. And thank you very much for sharing your personal story. And I think that everything you said is really spot on. I think that as Africans, especially in general, and sometimes when we speak, we don't realize what we're saying. It's like, oh, those kind of statements and things, and we don't realize the impact it has on the people or limit a person's love story because of this and the other. And very interesting. And I would just like to thank you so much for coming on and teaching us how to deal with people, because I think we have a niece who's a sickle cell patient. So it's great to hear this so that we also know how to deal with them, how to encourage them, what to say and what not to say. And it's good to have. It's good to have that kind of personal touch message from you as a patient yourself. Okay, Inti, I think thank you, Ruth, ever so much for coming on and answering our questions. Thank you, Akus, for facilitating from the medical as a medical doctor on the show as well. And we will have some adverts and then we'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
Mr. Mankwa, me office was a niska banye de wie ni project no. Eso de bia me office ka ma ne wo problem.
Enemremu. Na monte tap send nka.
No so ne de
Tap send ye easy, fast and secured way. Ubetimi send this free amanone. Aba Ghana bank account and as a mobile money account. Untia transfer fee bia.
Sir, I obey any say.
Chene se won ko App Store na Play Store. On download the tap send app no. Or download ya. Ebebu sanso promo code. Oma the pet TV shim. Obenya €5, £5, and answer $10 on his first transfer.
And you make kwa friend a catch them.
Tabi minyanwe. Esansa tap send at the good news aba. Tap send the gina customers wunti or the tap send wallet aba.
I know about any say.
So your customer who UK sia. Ubetimi akọ tap send app no create wallet woso. Enti se rate ne kosora now the sika ko gu wallet no. Anase mpo betimi atususu nkakra enti abere sema opeso send sika ba Ghana no anse wa send sika na ba Ghana anase oba o my Ghana mu watimi ya yusu sika e wo wallet no tie
and you said to say you yusu momo Ghana hey no
sa pepe se si tap send atre na shim kopiem wo United Arab Emirates, Netherlands and Austria. Tap send na papa no.
Hello, this is Lawyer Wisdom of Smart Solicitors. Join me this and every Friday on OT TV from 8 to 9 p.m. for all your UK immigration matters. I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Hello, and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. And if you've just joined us as well, thank you for coming. Welcome. This show, once again, just to let you know, is sponsored by TapTapSend. Download the app for the best rate of sending money to Ghana and Africa. So, Cecilia, we had Ruth come to talk to us about her personal journey with sickle cell, and we would like to open up the floor for questions. And we've got our first question in the chat from Sally. Is sickle cell a disability?
Oh, I can't see that. Is sickle cell a disability? Now, why would we? I don't think so. Because, well, we have to look at the definition of disability in the first place. And I think this is what Ruth was saying earlier before. What does sickle cell stop you from doing, essentially? You know, if for some people, and it really depends on who or the person or how their sickle cell affects them. So, if it's a case where the person is having to be hospitalized almost, 5 days out of a week, then I suppose in that person's case, you can say the sickle cell is disabling, but the sickle cell is not a disability, because a disability stops you from doing something. It disables you from doing tasks that normal people would do. But somebody with sickle cell, somebody like Ruth, like I know, she does everything, and she does, when she went on a whole Europe tour. Like Ruth literally toured the whole of Europe by herself. She didn't have a medical team. She didn't have anything. She went, and then she went to a US as well. I don't know, Ruth, I can't remember where you went, but she literally did the whole thing by herself, and she was absolutely fine. So simply put, no, it's not a disability. And I think it's like, that's what Ruth was saying about the stigma. So it's just like somebody being diagnosed with something like high blood pressure, or someone having diabetes. Would you say diabetes is a disability? No, it's not. It's a long-term condition. It's a chronic condition, but it's not a disability.
Thank you very much. Sally, if there are any follow-up questions, we would love to hear from you. You can, again, put it on the chat. Or
one I can see it says, is there any type of food that one can avoid with sickle cell? Ruth, I don't know if you're still around, but maybe you can answer this question. Are there foods that you have to avoid?
No, there are no foods we avoid.
Actually,
Basically,
knowing you as a foodian, actually.
we eat everything. There's no food.
Again, I think it depends on the individual. So, sometimes we tend to attribute things to a condition that we have, but somebody might be sickle cell and they might have an allergy to nut, or they might have an allergy to egg. Then all of a sudden, everybody in their family will start attributing it to, oh, wait, you're sickle cell, and suddenly it becomes a thing, but it's actually an individual. We have to take it on an individual basis. But yeah, on the bigger scale, no, it doesn't. There are no restrictions.
And fantastic. Okay, we've got 2 hands up as well. So we'll start with Dina. Hello, Dina.
Hi there. Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I think I was muted. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Okay. Thanks so much. And thanks, Ruth, for sharing such great insight. Sorry to hear some of the experiences you've had. And I'm just thinking it's because maybe of the cultural differences, because we've got family around that've got sickle cell, and I haven't heard of this stigmatization, especially in the UK. We hardly hear the differences, so it's a shame. And I think from what you said, there's a lot of work to be done back home, let's put it that way, because home is always home, and we need to make sure that people are treated the same. So happy to embark on any advocacy journey. Not that I'm a sickle cell, but I'm a very good advocate of donating blood. So my question then goes to Dr. Akosia. I don't know if it's the right place to ask, but I've got family members that have tried to donate, and because they've had malaria in the past when they were growing up, they've been told they can't donate. And I wasn't sure what the relation is. I don't know if you've come across anybody or anything, but I mean, personally, my husband is so keen to donate, but when they did the first sort of test, they realized he had some malaria. And this was years ago. And because of that, he can't donate. But when you talked about the fact that if someone has got a trait, then they're actually immune. So I was quite confused and wanted to find out what can be done. Can you ever donate? Sounds like he can never donate because he's had malaria in the past. Is that correct?
Was that here in the UK?
Here in the UK, yeah. But I think the screening is quite tight here.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting you should say. I know there are some people who cannot donate. So, for example, my sister cannot donate because she's G6PD. So, and we're going to talk about G6PD sometime as well. We'll maybe get Abana to come and talk about her experience. Or somebody, but because I think someone asked that we should actually go into G6PD, so we're working on it. We'll talk about it. But back to Dina, what your question? Yeah, so I know there are some conditions that can obviously, for obvious reasons, people with bloodborne infections like HIV cannot donate. People who have had cancers, or especially blood cancers, cannot donate. But those are, that's understandable. Somebody who's had malaria, so I don't know, unless when at the point where your husband was tested, he had active malaria genes in his blood, which might have been the case. So I know that, again, sometimes when you're infected with malaria, your spleen sometimes holds on to it and keeps it. So even though you're not you might not be showing any malaria symptoms. Once in a while, your spleen spoots out some malaria genes into the blood. I call it genes, but basically some antigens into the blood. So maybe that's why at the time he was tested, they figured out that he'd had some malarial antigens and he wasn't able to. But just get him to test again, especially if it's been a while he's been to Ghana and he's not had malaria for a long time. I think at this point he probably could donate some blood. But that's really strange. It's the first time I'm hearing that. And it's good to know. I'll do my research and come back. I hope I answered your questions, Dina. Sorry.
Oh, Dina, I've unmuted you if you would like to speak. Oh, she's been muted again. Sorry.
That's fine. I'm not next one. This fine.
Okay, that's fine, Dina. I'm sorry. If there's anything you further you'd like to speak, you could put it in the chat or let me know. I'll unmute you. Up next, we've got Blessing.
Yeah, thank you very much for your opportunity. I think like Dina, before I ask my question, before like Dina, about like Dina's question, and per the answer like Akos gave, I really support Akos. But I think it depends the country, like medical like protocols and stuff. I think after 6 months, he can test again and then go and check. If there's no antibodies in the system, he can give. I don't know the protocols in the UK, but that's what I know.
Yeah.
In Ghana and then in some part of Europe. So yeah, my question, there's a misconception that the sickle cell only affect like black indigenous or black people. How true about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think. Oh, sorry. That was. I was agreeing with you. It's like it was a misconception. So I was like, yeah. I think we kind of touched on this earlier. So no, definitely, it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't just affect black people. It affects the black population more. And yeah, and again, I'm going to bring out my fake statistics, like something like 90% is my statistic, but don't quote me on this. But basically, I'm just trying to say it affects black people more, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect white people or other races. And this is why I came to mention that, especially with thalassemia. So thalassemia affects the Caucasians more, but black people can also have thalassemia. So it's vice versa in the same way. So yeah, to put it simply.
Any follow-up questions, Blessing? Has your question been answered?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, sorry, we've got, I don't think it's a question, but I think it's Nancy sharing her sort of experiences from it.
Do you want me to read it? It says, my eldest son was born with sickle cell disease and life hasn't been easy at all. At tender age, he was prescribed folic acid and penicillin. I remembered when they gave me a prescription and told me that he has to take those medications for the rest of his life. I broke down in front of the doctors and cried my eyes out, thinking that my son was going to die. To God be the glory, he's going to be 26 in 2 months' time. So I think that's just another example of... Beg your pardon. Sorry. That's just an example of, like Ruth was saying earlier. But she's lived all this time. So Ruth, can you tell us a bit? I want to know a bit about your adventures and things. When you step out to go and do your adventures, like traveling, like coming to the UK, going to the States, doing all that stuff, do you have to make any preparations towards it? Like, do you have to, do you have to have a travel pack with medication for in case, like you said, your mother usually has like an IV line? Do you have to make any special preparations when you're going on an adventure, just in case,
I don't know how to say this, but my whole period in the UK, I never once even took my folic acid. I mean, that is not to say I am proud of it, but I mean, I already said earlier that I had become very conscious of my environment and my surroundings and my body. So at a point, I was fine. I mean, one of those days when you're like, oh, I'm fine, I can survive a day without it. And then it went on, but like I said, now I have it all over the place. But I remember when I was traveling around and all that, I had a painkiller, paracetamol, basically, because I don't like the rest. They are too strong. So paracetamol, basically, and then just my folic acid. and the zinc of it. So just these three, and I take them every day. Well, I don't remember I had a medicine pack on me when I was doing the tour, Sister Charlie. I was just focused on having fun and chilling and living in the moments. Yeah.
Okay. You wanted to no, go on. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, does the paracetamol work though? Because I know that obviously in terms of like, do you take the paracetamol when you're in pain? Because I know that, like I said, the pain threshold is very high. So I don't. Does the paracetamol work?
Mm-hmm. It works very well for me.
Maybe we look down on paracetamol.
it really does work for me. I mean, just 2 tablets and I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. Also, questions. Have you ever had jaundice?
I think that is the only thing that gives me away. So I basically have to drink at least 8 liters of water a day. And then it will clear their eyes. So, I mean, anybody who really knows sickle cell disease very well, if it doesn't show on your eyes, they can never tell you have it. But unfortunately, I think that is how people get to know I'm one, because they see this coloring of my eyes. And so they go like, are you fine? I mean, I don't like it, because all of a sudden they just give you this pity sort of black conception, negative thoughts in their head, is showing on their face. I really do not like it. Some people act very genuinely. Others too, you can see there's nothing good about their thoughts. So aside that, you will never tell. Right now, like this, if you look at my eyes, they fled, because I've been a good girl with drinking water.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So this is something that, this is just to say, this is not, you don't get jaundice. It's not a sign of you going into crisis. It's literally like ongoing, and you have to keep drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that's a very interesting concept. I've learned something new today.
I can shed some light on that, but I was laughing because literally I told you Ruth never told me she had sickle cell. I found out that way. That's why I'm laughing, because it was so fun. Like, I'll give a quick story. Sorry guys, I'm just getting memory lane now. But Ruth was, when she was in Aberdeen, she used to lead, choir, and she was like singing and she was jumping up, and then but then I was like sitting in the church and I was like, her eyes are yellow. And I was literally like, hold on a minute. Like, why are her eyes yellow? So I didn't think much of it. And then I just left it. And then I think this was the first time I'd met her, by the way. And the second time I met her, we went to like a party, and then a friend of mine, I met her through a friend of mine, a gentleman. And at the party as well, I saw her again. I was like, oh yeah, you're the girl who was leading praises at church. And then I went to greet her and her eyes were yellow again. So at that point, it kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, nah, her eyes can't be yellow twice. Like, the second time I've seen her eyes are yellow. So I pulled my friend to the side and I was like, is your friend okay? And then he didn't want to disclose. He was like, no, she's fine. And I was like, okay, this is me being a 3rd year medical student, by the way. And I'm like, oh, I've discovered something. So I'm so excited, because I'm like, I've diagnosed somebody, right? And I said to my friend, I was like, I think she has sickle cell. And then he says to me, how do you know? And I was like, her eyes are yellow. Like, is she having a crisis? Is she okay? And he said, oh, don't worry. Her eyes are always yellow. It's fine. And that's literally how I found out, Ruth, that you had, like, I never knew that, and then later on, when we became like really close friends, we kind of touched on it and stuff. So she's quite right when she talks about having the jaundice. And basically what happens is it's just because of hemolytic anemia. So red blood cells literally break down. Everybody's red blood cells break down once in like our life. Red blood cells have a lifespan of 120 days. And sickle cell is 10 to 20 days. So the sickle cells, they break down like very quickly. And when your red blood cells break down, they make a byproduct called bilirubin. And that byproduct basically is what gives you jaundice. So because her red blood cells are constantly breaking down, constantly all the time, every 10 to 20 days, and there's a backlog of it, they're going to have jaundice regardless, because you're always going to have that byproduct. So that's why she's saying drinking water is going to clear that out of the system, because bilirubin, that's what makes your urine yellow.
Yes.
Because so, and it actually makes when it goes to the back passages, uroglobulin, and it makes your feces brown. So essentially, the more water she drinks, the more that it flashes out, and then it's not going to be. So that's information for anybody who wanted to know. Not that anybody asked, I just have the way that.
Right. We've got hands up here. So Susan.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, guys. We're really getting really educated and aware of a lot of things. Thank you. It's going well on this session. I know tonight blood donation is not really a big issue, but sorry, it's not the issue for discussion, but since we mentioned it at a point in time, how best do you think we can encourage ourselves, that is people of color, so that we can donate more to save our own lives, like to save the lives of other brethren, like Dr. Akoshi, they say you are on the list. But I know there's been a lot of misconceptions. That's why people don't really come forward, especially people of color, to donate a lot. So how best can we encourage ourselves so we can be more out there with our donations?
Yeah. I mean, when you give the power to people, people just they like to be in the know. They like to have the knowledge. I totally understand why Black people don't like to get involved in these things, because, you know, the Western world has been notorious for using Black bodies as experimental things in the past. You know, Black people would donate their bodies and they would be used for experiments and, you know, things to be injected and stuff. And that was all in the past. And during the 21st century, and, you know, these things are not supposed to happen, right? So I think that's where the fear comes from, because some people think, oh, you know, if I go and they'll pretend they're drawing my blood, but then they'll be giving me HIV in the process or something, you know, just to test us like guinea pigs. And that's what people think. So the two things I usually say to people is, if you don't trust the hospital that you're going to, then go to a hospital that you trust. Because when you go to donate blood, nobody tells you have to go to this particular hospital. And I'm speaking for people in the UK. So for example, if you don't trust, let's say, Northwick Park Hospital, but you trust Royal Free Hospital, then go to Royal Free and donate it there. You know, take a leaflet, read again, another thing I realized, especially in the African population, the Black population, we don't like to read. These days, you don't even have to read. Go on YouTube, type in blood donation process in the UK, ask ChatGPT, tell me more about blood donation. You know, there's so many ways you can get information. You can take a leaflet, you can read, so you know about the process. So when you go to sit in a chair and the nurse comes along and they bring something that you didn't read about, ask the question. So, nurse, what's that you're holding? I don't remember seeing that on the YouTube. You might look, you know, you might feel like you look stupid, but I think it's protecting yourself, because you're well read about the process. So you know that actually when I come, they said they're going to sit me in the chair, they're going to give me a glass of water, and then they're going to come and connect something to my hand. So if they're doing something that is not normal, you can ask the question and then you can get an answer. And if you're reassured, and up until the process where you donate blood, you can always opt out. You don't have to go through with it, you know. So it's just, I think it's really just informing ourselves of, you know, of keeping ourselves informed of the process, having a real good knowledge of it, and just trusting the process, you know, trusting where we go to. I think that's the most important thing. By the end of the day, we can't force people to give, and people are still going to be apprehensive about it. So I guess all we can do is just sow the seed, keep encouraging people, keep telling people, using ourselves as an example. Like, for example, I'm on the blood, you know, the bone marrow list. I donate blood. So just like, I donate blood, nothing's wrong with me, nothing's happened to me. So, you know, if people they might say, okay, what hospital do you use to donate blood? Then that might be reassuring to the person. Say, okay, Dr. Akos uses this hospital, I'll use that hospital too. You know, it's just things like that. So yeah, just encourage people.
Yeah, sorry, Susan, I have to keep on muting people just so they can speak. Susan, has your question been answered? Any follow-up questions?
Yeah, that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Excellent, lovely. And thank you for your question as well and your encouragement. I had a question on anemia, but to see a Freeman, I think it was told to you, Ruth, have you ever had anemia? And what are the early signs of it? How would you know, say, you're getting anemia? Or is it something that you just sort of takes you straight into crisis when you get it?
I've not had it personally. I think that is probably the good thing about me being sickle cell. I don't want to say I'm happy about it, but I don't have all these adverse conditions people have. My only problem is my menstrual cramp just giving me hell. Mm-hmm. And just these on and off pains I'll get in the middle of the night or something. But I've not had these extreme body pains like the spine cases. Mm-hmm. The arthritis and all those things, I've not had them, so I can't say much.
Okay. My follow-up question was going to be, because I think you said, a friend is saying, folic acid was your holy grail. Yeah,
that one I had no option. I mean, they're on my neck in the morning with my breakfast. For folic and tea, drink the porridge. So it's just, you have to take it. You can't skip it. Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to ask about iron as well. Do you take iron, or because you don't have a problem with anemia?
I remember I used to take this black tonic, and then later on, a doctor said there is iron in it, it's not good for you. I was like, you people are just confused about us. One moment take iron, the next moment don't take iron. And so I stopped taking it. So it's just the zinc coffees I do for now. Yeah. But Akusha can actually educate us on that, because is iron good for us or is not good for us?
Oh my goodness, what a question to put me on the spot. So since you said this, I wouldn't have thought it was bad. I'm just trying to think in my head again. This is, you guys are giving me a lot of research work to do, because I need to go back and read on this as well. But because obviously if I guess the reason why they might say iron is bad for you is because iron is going to make you produce more hemoglobin. And in the case of you producing more hemoglobin, there's going to be more sickle hemoglobin. And the reason why you're having anemia, and this is just me putting all my medical knowledge together, So in the case of you having anemia, the reason why you're having anemia is not because you're iron deficient, is because you're having hemolytic anemia. That's why it's specifically called hemolytic anemia, as your red blood cells are breaking down. So you taking iron tablets actually defeats the purpose, because it's not about not having enough red blood cells. You have enough of the wrong red blood cells, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm just thinking maybe that's why the iron may not be so good for you, because number one, it's not solving anything. It's just giving you more red blood. Somebody gave me, oh no, I'm giving myself thumbs up. It's just giving you more, it's just giving you more red blood cells, but the hemolytic anemia. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but I'll need to get back to you on that. So yeah, that's a good question actually. Thank you. I'll put that down. And we'll come back to it after research.
Got a question in the chat, by the way, and I'm sorry, I probably will butcher some of these medical friends. Anyway, question is here to help me. I'll read. When I was pregnant, the doctor told me I'm a sickle cell carrier, but nothing has been done about it since. I do have fibromyalgia. Myalgia. Okay, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Do these conditions have anything to do with this?
Not necessarily, no. So as a carrier, there's nothing that's going to be done about it, because you just have the trait. You're not sick from sickle cell. So we should have maybe talked about how you get sickle cell. So sickle cell is a disease which is autosomal recessive. And what that means is you have to have 2 of the genes for you to have the disease. In your case, you only have 1 of the genes. So you have a healthy sickle cell, a healthy blood gene, and you have a sickle cell gene. So essentially, it doesn't make any difference, because you're still producing good red blood cells. So you're just a carrier. So in your case, I don't know if you're married or if you have a partner, but you're the type of person that we would say, before you get hooked up with somebody, you need to make sure that they're also not a carrier, because if they're also a carrier, then there's a 1 in 4 chance that your child will be sickle cell. Because if your sickle cell gene ties up with their sickle cell gene, it becomes 2 sickle cell genes, and that's how you get sickle cell. So essentially, you should try not to get with somebody who has a sickle cell gene as well. But in the terms of being a carrier, there's nothing done with it. Then in terms of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, essentially those are not related generally to the being a carrier. It's just, they're just conditions that they can happen, that they can be genetic, they can be environmental factors. There's a lot of things that go into it, but specifically tied to sickle cell, no. Great. Sorry, sickle cell carrier, no. Yeah, because sickle cell can give you chronic fatigue syndrome, but that's when you've actually got the actual sickle cell, but not the carrier. Yeah, so that's different.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We're just having questions time on a very informative session that Ruth has kindly come up and spoken to us about. And welcome to anyone who's come in and joined us in the last process. We've got another hands up. Blessing.
There's one in the chat. Let me just say, it says G6PD is very key. Yes, it is. So we're going to talk about it. We'll let you know when we are. So just sign up to the OT Media WhatsApp, and because they let you know what topics are coming every week. Then it says also there is a lot of stigma too in the UK amongst families and hospitals.
I didn't know. That's very interesting.
Again, like I say, I didn't know. For me, okay, coming from my background, I use my background for me. So, for example, when I see a sickle cell patient, again, like Ruth was saying, suddenly there's a thought that comes in her head, and you kind of almost feel sorry for the person, and you say, "Oh, they have sickle cell. Oh, they're not going to survive very long, or it will be difficult for them to." And that's the sort of stigma that, I don't know, maybe it's a background thing, but actually, when it comes to my other colleagues, I don't see them react in that way, or, you know, even when it comes to thalassemia, because they just don't react in that way. So I'm not sure, maybe, and I always say demographics are different. Aberdeen's population, where I trained and I worked, had a lot of Caucasian. So the culture is different. But now moving down to England, especially West Midlands, in fact, sometimes when I'm working in the hospital, I feel like I'm working in Africa. A lot of the staff there are Black, you know, so if you're working in such a hospital and most of the staff there are of African descent or from Black origins, they would probably have that cultural background as well. So even though you're in the UK, there's still that stigma in that hospital, if that makes sense. So I think maybe that's what, if you're down south, more towards England, more towards the south, where there's more of a Black population, then you probably will get that stigma as well.
Yeah, interesting. Definitely, we will be having a session on G6PD, so stick around for that. And Blessing, we're on you now. Question?
Yeah, sure. I'm still on the misconception about sickle cell patient and stuff. I heard that those with sickle cell are lazy, and two, they are like opioid seekers. Is there any truth about that?
Can we just appreciate that Ruth had to throw her neck back for that? She's ready to answer this question. Go for it, Ruth. Tell him.
Please, we are not lazy. We are really not lazy. I mean, you can take me for an example. I work as a medical physicist in a cancer center. And as part of my job, I need to lift heavy equipment. And I am a lady on top. So I'm lucky that growing up, my daddy didn't think I'm a sickle cell, so you will not do some basic things. My house, nobody gets exempted. We are fixing the pump in the house, the lady is doing it. So I was trained up in that regard. So please, as for lazy, I'm yet to meet one. Unless the person's condition is to that extreme, even that you will not get them in those places because he or she knows the strength is not going to allow him or her do that. But we are really not lazy. I can vouch for the people I have met with the sickle cell disease.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I think I'll agree with that. Again, when it comes to these things, I think it really depends. It's an individual thing, but you can't lump everybody together and say, that people with sickle cell are lazy. Yeah, simply put, really. Yeah, it depends on the individual. Sally, I think I agree with you. So, but thank you for the question. It's good. I think this session is also really good because there's so much stigma around it. And I think that, we really need to work hard to, I think I might join the sickle cell movement because I think it's so much, maybe like just from the sessions showed me that, there's so much misinformation out there and so much education that just needs to go into it. So no, thank you very much, Ruth, for, for coming and talking to us about this very important condition.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Blessing, for your question. Last, I think to close it off, I've got one last question here, which will be, are there any promising therapies or treatments on the horizon for sickle cell disease? This is a question to both of you, as a patient, as a medical doctor. Are there any therapies or treatments on the horizon for sickle cell disease?
Ruth, and I
mean, I could have mentioned a few in the beginning. The bone marrow transplant, and then is it the same as the stem transplants? They are the same, right?
No, slightly different, slightly different.
And I know now people are choosing the genes of their kids, and I have a family relative I know in the US currently. They are trying to choose the genotype of the kids. So the first attempt has failed. The second attempt, I know it's still in the lab, we're processing. They said, the people said they've been able to match two AAs because apparently the wife is SC and then the husband is AS or something. I don't know how they got married without knowing the genotype after all the advocacy. So they are trying to make sure they pick the man's A and not his S. And that has been the struggle. But I know that technology is out there. I've forgotten the name. If I find it, I can share later.
Yeah. And yeah, like she said, I mean, some people have already even talked about like exchange transfusions, blood transfusions, those are the go-to. I know there's a lot of work being done in terms of stem cells and like you said, picking genes and things like that. There are definitely so many things that are going on. At the moment, the thing that we know that does help a lot is the bone marrow transplant. That's probably almost curative. stem cells still education, sort of educational, research still going on with stem cells. But if stem cells near fire, will be really life changing. It'll be really good because stem cells will it'll tackle you right from the root of it. So, and then this picking of genes, I know some people say we're trying to play God, but my argument being a scientist is that, you know what, if God did not want us to do these things, he wouldn't have given us the knowledge. The thing is, he gives us the knowledge for us to be able to do some of these things. And that's my opinion. Don't like you're more than happy to disagree with me, but I'm a scientist, so I have to kind of stand by what scientists do. So but having to put God with it as well. So obviously, like, I definitely agree that some of these things makes us look that we're playing God, but we can't create human beings. All we can do is try to make a change or try to make the world better, and in a way that's what they're trying to do. So I think I agree with when people say people are now trying to pick the eye color of their kids or trying to pick the skin color of their kids. That's a different case. Like, we're not trying to cure disease, but if we're trying to cure disease and we're actually trying to take away out the disease, then I think in a way is what's the difference of taking out a disease and giving a person a drug to cure a disease? There's no difference there, is there? So yeah.
Yes, thank you. And then once again, thank you, Ruth. Ever so grateful for your appearance here and to share your personal stories and your personal journey. And thank you to Thank you to our host as well, our resident doctor and host. Sorry, I got confused because I've got Blessing's hands up. Blessing.
Yes, please. Sorry, I know.
Last question.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I know the time is over, but the treatment that although I was late, but per what I could say that there's a stem plan and it's like bone transfer or whatever and stuff. There's a case here. I don't know how effective it is, this stem transfer and whatever because there's a patient, 45 years, he had a vertebrae fracture. Mm-hmm. So we put plate and everything. For about 6 months, no callus has been formed, the bone is not healing, nothing of you. We asked him to go for calcium D3. He doing all the things as normal patient would do when he has a bone fracture. But the bones are not healing or whatever. So until the last almost 6 months after surgery, he came for review and whatever. Then he didn't tell us that he has this sickle cell anemia or whatever, because he's amazed. The father is a Congolese and then the mother is a Hungarian. So he never revealed all this secret that okay, he's a sickle cell patient because he's shy as there's stimulation in the environment. So later on, after doing series of tests and then seeing his GP, he came out he has sickle cell anemia. So my question is, how effective is this stem plan? Because I know when you have a sickle cell anemia, it definitely affects the bones. Mm-hmm. So how effective is this stem plan? Because some of the fracture, the bones are not healing. And how effective is this stem plan and what have you? Thank you.
It's incredibly effective. The problem with a bone transplant is that it doesn't always work, right? It's almost like whenever even an organ transplant, right? For example, I'll use a kidney transplant. Sometimes people have a kidney transplant and what the body will do is the body will reject the kidney, even though the kidney has been matched to the body's antibodies and antigens and everything. The body sometimes can still reject the kidneys, and in your backup base one, you have to take out the transplanted kidney and the person is now without a kidney. So that happens. It's the same with the transplant. Anytime you try to introduce something new to the body which doesn't originally belong to the body's first response is I need to reject this. So when you do a bone marrow transplant, the body can reject it. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be 100% effective. But if it is effective, then it's incredibly effective, because what you're doing is, and again, you'll know this, Dr. Pra, because with all your vertebrae fractures, we're not in a medical conversation, break it down for the audience. But he's an orthopedic surgeon, that's why. So with all the fractures and everything that you were talking about, it's difficult. If you will know that the bone marrow is where the red blood cells originate from. Essentially, that's where they are made from. All our cells in our body, like the white blood cells, the red blood cells, they all come from the bone marrow, and then they differentiate. So when they get to a certain stage in maturation, half of them will become your white blood cells and half of them will become your red blood cells. So that's how they start. So when you do a bone marrow transplant, you're essentially changing it from the root cause So if it is successful, then it actually is very incredibly successful. So yeah, but the only downside is sometimes the body can reject it. So that's why we have to give some medications to, to help the body not to reject it. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Blessing.
Sure, Doc. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Blessing. Thank you, Akos. So I think that's we'll come to a close. We've gone over, but as always, it's always very difficult to fit everything that we have in 1 hour. So thank you very much for your patience and for sticking with us through to the end. Any last remarks from our guest Ruth and our doctor, of course?
Okay, thank you. I think my only problem is the only thing I would say is we should love everyone. I mean, the fact that some people are sickle cell doesn't mean they are not human beings. And also, 19th June is Sickle Cell Day, so please advocate, donate blood, say somebody.
That's why we brought you the show. That's fantastic. Yeah, World Sickle Cell Day, guys. Everyone, with all the knowledge you have here, go and enrich somebody and impact somebody. My last words to you would be: make a change, that you be the change that you want to see. So, like hearing Ruth's story and everything, about the stigma, I hope that it's touched you and that you'll be able to go out of here and and be able to say, actually, I'm going to change the way in which I think about patients with sickle cell. I'm not going to be calling them a sickler. I'm not going to be thinking negative about them. And even if your body takes you there, if your mind takes you there, try to think positively about it. It'll take a while for us to change the stigma, but it will start with each and every one of us here. So I really hope that, you've been impacted by this conversation today and that you go out here with a different and a renewed mindset.
Thank you very much, everyone. I want to thank our faithful watchers. Thank you to anyone who's been here with us through the start. Also want to thank you for our new joiners. We hope that you will stay. Just some housekeeping. We'd just like to say that tomorrow we've got a time with Tap Send. So if you could just join. And on Friday we've got Ask the Lawyer. So make sure to tune into these very important programs.
And next week, Wednesday, we're back with OT Health Talk. And this time we're going to have Dr. Justice Boache, who is the director for Pfizer vaccines here in the UK. So if you have any questions, I don't know what topic he's bringing yet. He's trying to surprise us. But if you have any questions about the COVID vaccines, because he was the director for Pfizer vaccines, so he can answer questions about COVID vaccines. He can answer questions about any vaccine. And obviously, this is also the general OT Health Talk. So any medical questions, health questions you have, if you read something in the newspaper that you want clarity on, if you've got family, whatever, any health question at all, please do come. I'll be here. And if I don't know, I'll do the research and come back. So thank you for always tuning in. We love you guys.
And more than ever, thank you to our sponsor, Tap Send. If you haven't downloaded the app, please do, as it is the best way to send money to Ghana and places in Africa. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, and remember to follow us on Instagram. Our link is in the chat. Somebody's put the link there. So we are OA Sisters, O_A Sisters. Thank you and see you next week. Bye-bye.
After successfully redefining Accra's skyline with the delivery of the signature apartment, Cape May Properties presents an exclusive unveiling of the tallest residential building in Ghana, offering a first look of Sultan Sky. Sultan Sky, a magnificent representation of the seamless fusion of quality, groundbreaking innovation, and pioneering architectural brilliance. An extraordinary structure set to reshape the concept of upscale living, thanks to its inventive attributes and unparalleled commitment to precision. This master-planned residential development will focus on the building's location, security, privacy, the design's aesthetic brilliance, elevated features in each living space, cutting-edge smart home technology, and amenities beyond imagination. With fantastic residential features, which include 24-hour concierge service, a state-of-the-art fitness center, a floating tennis court, a floating swimming pool, a spa, a sky pool, a sky lounge, a movie theater, co-working spaces, kids zone, distinctive lifts for staff and deliveries, private gardens, chef's kitchen, expansive terraces, entertainment rooms, restaurant, and 24-hour security. Selton Sky, a new perspective in the sky.
Tap send abba ama kwentufuo ya soma de enya jekoma me ankodru ma send enru ye bia we die se ma me na ade kwa koma na tap send se papa so a tap send hwe se uni obi abra person koma ni bibia UK for ya tede tap send wallet aba na wallet na aba no hwe enya wallet kuma enwa say wo dey say umbeso diska be kokora na enne ya nsese ekosui enumre ya sika bi owo bia send ko tap send wallet ne so ebra wo pese wo yusu bia ewa wo dia eda ho maso ahwe aboa me enwa na ndidi mi dwuma tap send e ma re fi say wallet